Hi, my name's Chris and I've had some time on now with the Mi 10 Pro. So both of these models, the Mi 10 and the Mi 10 Pro, are the latest flagships from Xiaomi, and you probably know the spec. That's probably why you're watching this video. Snapdragon 865 with LPDDR5 RAM, 8GB on each model. The difference in storage, of course, 128GB versus 256. But that extra we have to pay for the better camera setup. A 20 megapixel ultra wide instead of 13, 5x optical zoom, a 2x optical, basically portrait camera, louder, better speakers, faster charging time, slightly less battery life. Is it actually worth it? In the box you'll find a 3.5mm to Type-C headphone adapter because this doesn't have a 3.5mm headphone jack. We've got our standard USB to Type-C cable. You get a clear case, as you can see, which is actually a combination of hard plastic and soft TPU on the outer edges. The power supplies, however, a bit of a difference here. We've got 30 watts versus the 65 watt charger here, which is a little bit heavier and larger, as you can see. So this version here that I picked up from Trading Shenzhen, just like the other one I've got, is the matte blue, you can see. So it does have actually a more slippery surface compared to the shiny but shows fingerprint standard Mi 10. Now they do look identical. The difference, of course, is with the camera modules here and the difference we've got with the camera. So we have a 20 megapixel camera on this one versus the 13. We've got a really useless, what I don't agree with, choice, and that is having the top camera here being just a macro, and then the main 108 megapixel f1.69 aperture lens. That's the Samsung HMX. It's capable of doing 6K video that they upscale to 8K, but more on that later in this clip here. But we've got a 5x optical zoom camera with this one, and then 2x. So if you're into your portraits, I recommend getting this model, definitely if you want better ultra-wide photos, as you'll see, and of course then zooming in 2x or 5x optically instead of digitally that you have to do with this one, which will not be as good. Now in terms of build, very good. This is excellent, this phone. It's a little on the heavy side because it does weigh 200 and approximately 13 grams. Now it is 9.4mm thick. With the camera bulge, you can see it does stick out quite a bit there. That then brings it up to 11.4mm. So it's not the slimmest phone. Now the curvature of the screen, a lot of people don't like this. I don't like curved screens too much myself, to be honest. I prefer to have a flat screen. But Xiaomi does have settings in the settings menu under display here to actually control and reject touches along here, any accidental touches. And I find I'm not having any problems with that. So the accidental palm rejection, touch rejection on that edge is very good with this phone. So both of these displays, although on paper, when you have a look at the specs, they are actually different. They are indistinguishable really, apart from you may notice that it's a fraction brighter on the Pro model, which is actually down here on the bottom of the screen. Now you won't see it on camera here. They'll both look identical. So we've got 970 nits that I measured versus 930 nits. That's nothing when it comes to difference. You're not going to see it. Both are legible in direct sunlight. So they are really bright screens. This is great. Both of them, of course, support 90 Hz with 180 Hz touch response, and they're full HD plus screens. Now the color gamut, the coverage that we have on the Pro model is slightly better, but you cannot distinguish the difference between them, not with the naked eye. You need to break out measuring tools there and have a look at the screens. They are very nice screens, top end, AMOLED, full HD plus screens. One other thing that's very different is, of course, the loudspeakers. This is why we lost a little bit of battery space, is because they included larger speakers in the Mi 10 Pro, and yes, you do hear it. Sound is a lot better, more bass coming through and slightly louder. So again, on the left is the Mi 10 Pro. Very good, and now the Mi 10. One more time, that Mi 10 Pro. So it does sound a lot louder than Mi 10 Pro with more bass, higher quality sound, better speakers. Definitely. Is it worth losing that 280 milliamp hours worth of battery? I think it is actually, because those speakers are very good, especially if you use them a lot, sorry. And okay, Type-C to 3.5mm audio quality. Both of them are excellent. I can't really tell any difference between them. There could be, but it's marginal and I cannot detect it. Here's a sample of voice call quality as well on the Mi 10 Pro.
It's exactly the same as the Mi 10. I cannot distinguish any difference between them. It does have active noise cancellation and sounds just like any other flagship out there.
As for gaming performance, well, it's pretty much exactly the same here between the Mi 10 and the Mi 10 Pro. It's all down to developer support for 90 frames per second to support the 90 Hz screen and get that to match. So in time, of course, this will come through. They'll be updating the apps and we'll see then a 90 Hz mode when it comes to our frame rate in popular titles. So I have a little charging test here going, and I've already finished up with the Mi 10, which is on the right of the screen. That actually took 58 minutes this time. Last time it was 59 minutes when I tested it. Currently at 41 minutes here with the Mi 10 Pro, and it's still at 99%. So let's see how long it takes to get to 100. Remember, this is 65 watts versus 30, and the difference doesn't actually look to be that much. I thought it might have charged somewhere around under 40 minutes, but you can see it is over. So I'm trying to keep the screen off here to get an ideal result, because I believe most people will charge it with the screen off. Oh, 100% finally. Okay, so 45 minutes approximately, but it kind of bugged out there. It was on 99% for so long, so I believe it could actually possibly be faster than this. 45 minutes. This is all just an estimate here, so it's around, you could say, maybe 13, 14 minutes faster than the standard model. So of course there is a big difference here with our storage capacity. Remember, it is non-expandable. You cannot just add a micro SD card and increase the storage, sadly, with these ones. So on the Mi 10, which is the standard edition, we have 110 gigabytes free on first boot. And then on the left, the Mi 10 Pro, we get 237 gigabytes free on first boot. So a lot more storage. There is a slight difference here in wireless speed. So both of them are very good. This is Wi-Fi 6 spec. We get 626 megabits per second on the standard edition, and then the Pro model has 682 megabits per second. And then when I went over to the other side, I also tested the lower speeds. Both of them do perform quite well. Good range, good reception, very good wireless. One of the fastest I have seen too. And here we have GPS, so you get an accuracy of 3 meters on both of these. Both of them support the dual carrier frequency, so you get both level 1 and level 5 there with GPS, and a camera API 2 level 3 support. So that's our maximum hardware support level. So there is actually a Gcam port that's kind of working. It's not optimized yet, and I have actually featured that in a quick comparison in my channel, so make sure you check that. So we do have DRM info just like the standard model. It is a security level 1 with widevine cert, which is very, very good there. So that means Netflix and Amazon Prime in full HD and HD, not stuck in standard definition. Internal storage, because we have the larger capacity, that means it's always going to be a little bit faster here and super quick here. Look at those random reads. 231 megabytes per second on the Mi 10 Pro versus the 183 on the standard Mi 10. And Antutu scores. Bit of a difference here. It's probably just a difference with the firmware both of these are running. I expect them to perform really both about the same. So almost 600,000 the score in Antutu is of course very good. Temperature between both of them, I noticed that they're about the same. There isn't too much of a difference there. And temperatures are very good, by the way, on both of these phones. They barely get what I would call even hot when you're gaming, even for an hour or two. So this is, of course, going to be dependent on carriers, time of day and everything. I cannot test out 5G, unfortunately, because it's not in my area where I live. I need to travel about 120 kilometers. Face unlocking and fingerprint unlocking is very quick. I will demonstrate this very quickly because it's the exact same hardware here for the fingerprint reader, front-facing camera, and the chipset, and even the RAM. So tap both of them, and yeah, that was about the same. There's no real point me doing it. There we go. That was identical speed right there. And the same goes for that fingerprint reader. So it is very fast, and I'll just quickly demonstrate that now by pressing it. Very quick there. And what about the Pro? Exactly the same, more or less. So jump into the camera here. So what we've got is the same setup as the Mi 10, but of course those additional cameras means that we have this right here, the 2x optical. We've got the 5x optical right here. And if you press and hold, and you can scale up to then 50 times, which is a digital, and it looks horrendous, horrible. I would never actually use that. So when you start recording video, you cannot actually swap over to the different cameras, just like the Mi 10. Right here we've got 8K, tapping that brings up the 8K, which actually says right here AI 8K. So it's been upscaled from 6K, that's all the HMX supports, to then the 8K. So this is the front-facing camera on both of them, and they don't have any electronic image stabilization. The audio on both has improved greatly compared to the previous generation of mobiles from Xiaomi, because they increased that bitrate to 320 kilobits per second. But really, I hope in future firmware updates they can add electronic image stabilization. Even if it means we have more of a crop, it just means the footage is going to be so much more usable and practical. So right now you really do need to use a gimbal with this phone. This is ultra wide video on both of them. Stabilization is very good. Perhaps maybe a little bit more details, maybe slight difference because of the increased megapixel count on the Mi 10 Pro here with the ultra wide cameras. Stability on both is very good. Let's pan around here. You do see some noticeable stutter on them, which is not great. I'm seeing this also on other phones as well with electronic image stabilization. So the rear cameras, they are 108 megapixels and they're both identical here. And I've noticed the stabilization on both seems to be pretty much equal, as you'd expect to be the same here. Now the focus, we do have that IR, infrared assisted focus, on the Pro model. I'm not actually seeing too much of a difference between that and the normal model. I mean, it could be slightly better, but I'm not really seeing it. Now once you start recording in 4K 30 frames per second here, or 8K or even 4K 60, you cannot swap over to the ultra wide or 2x or anything. Won't let you do that. Hopefully they can change that with a firmware update. So now with the super steady mode enabled, I'm going to run up the stairs here. And you can see it's quite steady, but still not quite as good as the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus that I have. Make sure you check my comparison against the Mi 10 and the S10 Plus to see the difference there in the super steady modes. Low light, 4K, 30 frames per second. So the sun just set. It actually looks a lot brighter than it really is. And stabilization on both of them, yeah, it does not look as good, of course, now, because these conditions are difficult, even with a 108 megapixel sensor. Ultra wide, it looks like the Pro might actually capture a tiny bit more light to me. When you look in the distance there, you can see the masts of the boats, where it's very hard or harder to make out on the standard Mi 10. So battery capacity, we've got the 4,780 milliamp hours on the Mi 10, the standard edition, with a larger battery. And then, as I mentioned, because of those larger speakers, it's the 4,500 on the Mi 10 Pro. Sadly, I'm trying to run my fixed PC benchmark here for our battery life, and it's just not working, because something to do with MIUI is causing it to think the phone is being touched or used, or it's ghost touches on the screen or something. But it should be very similar to this. The result I got was 11 hours and 24 minutes. Check my full review of the Mi 10. So you're not really going to lose too much. From 280 milliamp hours is probably going to be like 40 minutes less of screen on time or something like that. So expect a 10-hour something result on this one right here, and that translates into about 2 days use. However, standby battery drain isn't so great on both of these. you lose about 9% over the space of around 6 or 7 hours. So it basically boils down to this. If you take a lot of portrait photos, if you need a 2x optical, 5x optical zoom camera, and a slightly, I feel, better ultra wide, then yes, grab yourself the Pro model. If you happen to play your speakers at 100% volume all the time, the 2 dual loudspeakers that is, then again go for the Pro. But for the charging time, I mean, it's not a huge difference. I don't think people make their buying decisions on whether one is 10 minutes or 12 minutes faster than the other. At least I know I wouldn't. Now the displays isn't really that much of a difference at all. In fact, you cannot see the differences between these two displays without a proper meter to measure them and go, okay, yes, the Pro is slightly brighter. In terms of color reproduction, it's very, very hard again. To the naked eye, you will not see any difference there. So I wouldn't buy the Pro expecting to have an amazing, better display. I feel Xiaomi have done something kind of really weird with these two models. They should have put like the Mi Note 10 camera setup on the first model, leave it at that, and most people would probably buy it, because I don't feel paying the extra for the Pro is actually worth it, again, unless you really will be taking so many portrait photos and ultra-wide photos and zoom photos, then you'll get that benefit. And let's take a look at the pricing in the market. So this is going to be selling for, I believe, the global version, this is just rumored at the moment, about 799 euros. It's going to be about 100 or 150 euros more than the Mi 10 standard model. Okay, you get double the amount of storage and the faster charging, but you know, I don't think it's really worth it. Now, because these are import Chinese models, they are running the Chinese firmware, there are a few bugs, expect those to all be ironed out. If you want more detail, then do check the Mi 10 review. I've got a lot of camera comparisons as well, so make sure you check those ones out. And yes, guys, in the comments, March 5th update is coming. I will go back and take a look at the cameras again of at least the Pro model here, and we'll see what kind of improvements we can expect. Now, do remember, global version, that's probably the one to go for, but especially if you need LTE band 20, these models do not have them. Widevine level 1 cert is there at least for your Netflix and Amazon Prime Video streamers. That is great. So overall, the Mi 10 Pro, as expected, a better phone. I do like it. They're very, very good phones here from Xiaomi. I do feel the price needs to lower down a little bit and be more aggressively priced, considering they're going to have some stiff competition, Xiaomi. The Mi 10 Pro is going to be up against the OnePlus 8 shortly. Then we have, of course, the Realme X5 5G and other 5G phones that are coming out. And then when you take a look at the fact that you can buy an S10 Plus and the P30 Pro for cheaper than both of these models, in fact. Those are quite cheap now. They're last gen phones. If you don't mind slightly slower performance and you don't need 5G or 90 Hertz, very good phones as well to go for. So thank you so much for watching this review here of the Mi 10 Pro, and do check those camera comparisons and my other reviews. Thanks for watching.